So I had to go ahead and capture this one here on YouTube. I started out over there on that TikTok. I had to actually stop my TikTok video to make sure I get this captured on YouTube. Because this one right here, you have to be able to come back and replay this one. This one right here, you have to be able to share this with someone. Make sure you share this video. This one right here, you have to make sure you're able to access the knowledge that is in this video. It's very knowledgeable. Okay? So let me introduce myself. I'm Jazzy Gems for those of y'all that never met me, never heard me. Because people gonna see this one here. Um, Let me explain something here. I grew up watching vampire movies like everybody else. You know, the vampire in Brooklyn. You know, I knew about Dracula. You know what I'm saying? When I was little, you know, remember we used to run in the house when the bets came out? And we used to say, greetings, Miss Make It Better. Remember we used to say that the bets, if you had on a red shirt, red socks, you had on red, then the bets would get you. Remember we said that when we was little. We would run. And we would say, if the bats get you, then they would suck your blood. Do y'all remember being afraid of bats? Okay, okay. So let me elaborate here. Okay. So the bird is the child of the day, children of the day. The bird. You see birds when the sun rises. You see birds when the sun is out. You hear birds chirping when the sun is about to rise. You hear birds getting up in the grand rising. Birds. Indians are associated with birds. Indians wear bird feathers. Indians got bird feathers on their head. When we study culture, we find out that the Indian bird feathers are their headdress. That means they're warriors. That means spiritually they're warriors. You know, the laws of Ma'at, right? It's all associated with birds. Okay, so bats are the children of the night. Bats are not daywalkers. Bats are in caves. Bats dwell in the dark. Bats, you know, they different from birds. Bats are more parasitic animals, right? So you got your birds and you got your bats. You got to understand it's a duality. The ancient Book of the Dead teaches us about these dualities. That we live amongst the children of the day and we live amongst the children of the dark, of the night. So once you gather that information, if y'all watching this, if you can hit the like button to raise the algorithm, gratitude, appreciate y'all for that. Yes, gratitude, gratitude. Okay, so let me elaborate where I'm going with the bat and the vampire thing. Please don't add, just let me talk. I'm not even going to pay attention. I'm going to talk. Okay, so back to what I was saying. So now that we know the difference between the bats and the birds, and we understand spiritually what this means, let me explain. Okay, so I went to New Orleans and I was ignorant and I was like the average people, the masses that's programmed. You have to think the masses are programmed. So I was the masses and I was programmed and I was taught to obey. I was taught to think. I was miseducated. I was one of those people. So I went to New Orleans like the typical program person do. So then when I went to New Orleans, I did not know what was going on there. I didn't have a clue about real shit. Okay? So I went to New Orleans. Didn't know none of this stuff. So when I went to New Orleans, I stayed in the Treme. I'm gonna elaborate everything. Just stay tuned. But I stayed in the Treme because I did not know how music is sold, and I did not know how music is connected to all of this. When we was in New Orleans, we went to visit Marie Laveau, who was a witch, because we did not understand that this is about witch power, which is ancestral magic, and this is about vampire. This is about energy ciphering of the ancestral magic, because I didn't understand what vampirism was. So I'm down there sitting duck, didn't have a clue what could have happened to me. So, baby, the first night we was on the witch side of the French quarters. The second night we went into the city. The third night we went into the French quarters on the vampire side of the French quarters. Did you know it was the vampire side of the French quarters? Most people don't. If you go Google the vampire jazz bars, the vampire restaurants, they actually serve blood at these restaurants. They'll tell you it's wine that looks like blood, but come on now. You could be them people that's dumb enough to think what you want if you want. You know what I'm saying? Because I used to be the dumb people. You had to be intelligent here. You got to know what's going on here. Okay, so when we was in the French quarters on the vampire side, I'm gonna tell you what I saw. First of all, the people that was down there spoke old English. These was some old ass people now. You understand? These was old people. These was not modernized people. So these people spoke old English. What is crazy about that? Because the word is God. The word. So the fact that these people spoke old words, these people spoke words that are no longer in circulation. So you have to understand some of the words that they speak are compelling. Do you know vampires have the ability to compel you with their words? So compel you with the words is to captivate you. Compel you is to cast a spell on you. Compel you is to control you with their words. So that is actually one of the superpowers that they have. One of the super strengths that they have is to compel you with words. Where you are literally frozen in fear because of these words. So these people would say things like, "Oh my God, you look insatiable, insatiable. Oh my God, you look illustrious. You look what are some words? Illustrious." They were using old English. These are spell casting techniques. So when you go deeper in your studies and you understand the power of spell casting, you will know that this is serious. Okay. So I didn't know vampires existed until I came back home. Once I came, I was aware that I was in the presence of vampires. I was aware that I was in that side of the French quarters. I was aware it was crawling with them. I was aware it was a dark energy. I was aware that my energy was in trouble. I was aware my ancestors had to look over me. You know, all of that, I became aware of that when I was down there. So when I got back home, I started to do my research. Okay, so that's where the live get good. So when I got back here, started doing my research. Um, the first thing I did was I watched a movie. Even though you may say it's a movie, but I found out it's a documentary. So the first movie I watched was Vampire Diaries. And in the movie Vampire Diaries, you have these brothers. that were living during the 1300s. And their names was Stephen and Damon and the Salvatore brothers. And these brothers had some guests that stayed at their house. And the guests, this was in the 1300s. If you know your history, then you know that in the 1300s they had tuberculosis outbreaks. I'm talking about, you could go check your history. They had to build irons over people's caskets because they wouldn't stay in the ground. They have documentation of them. Wait a minute, what is all this riffraff out? Oh. So they also have documentation of them saying how they could not keep people in the ground during these days. Greetings, greetings. So they could not keep people contained in the ground. And they said that it was tuberculosis. They also called it something else. It was a code word. Because they couldn't just write down that it was a vampire outbreak. You gotta go do your history. Go look in Connecticut. It was a vampire outbreak. It was a vampire outbreak in the Carolinas. It was a vampire outbreak in Haiti and Jamaica. It was in the 1300s, y'all. Go do your history. Go do your history and see how these people landed in Hades first. Hades got all type of history about zombies and vampires and things that suck your blood. They got all type of stories about this. Now, this stuff get put under myth. This stuff get put under superstition. This stuff get put under fairy tales. But the deeper you study, you realize fairy tales are real, myths are real, mythology is real. Now, I'm not here to convince you. You know what I'm saying? But if you study and you know, then listen to me. Okay, so I get to watching the Vampire Diaries. I'm doing my research, right? I already know shit before I'm watching the movie, but I don't know that the stuff I know go with the movie, right? You know, that's why I say you never know what you know till you get to learning, right? So I'm up here watching the Vampire Diaries, and it's saying that the girl in the movie saying her granddaddy had left this diary because he was a vampire hunter. He was a vampire slayer. So I'm like, damn, her granddaddy kept a journal about him slaying vampires. So, I continue on gathering all my facts about the movie. Then I go and watch the spin-off of Vampire Diaries, which is the originals. The beginning of the originals, it tell you that these vampires was on the ship. And when these vampires was on this ship, they had caskets with daggers stuck in their hearts. Witches got daggers. Those of y'all that got knowledge know witches got daggers, right? These vampires had daggers stuck in their heart. When they got in the ship, the vampire asked them, "What year is this?" The man, the vampires arrived in New Orleans in 1600. When they arrived in New Orleans in 1600, I mean, that's a fact. They put facts like this in movies thinking that you gonna be so thrilled in the movie that you gonna miss the facts. And that was a fact that the vampires was actually, they arrived in the 1600s. Okay, so keep in mind, I don't watch the Vampire Diaries. And now I'm watching the originals. And now I'm seeing where the original vampires came from, how the original vampires was created. I'm learning the history of the vampire, right? So my best friend brother brings up this book. He said, have you ever, I'm telling him about all this vampire stuff. So he like, you ever watch Abraham Lincoln, the Vampire Slayer? I say no. He say you should watch that movie. So me, I go watch Abraham Lincoln, the Vampire Hunter, the movie. So now I'm watching the movie, right? So as I'm watching the vampire, the Abraham Lincoln, the Vampire movie, as I'm watching it, I'm realizing that he is the one that created the journals. Because in the beginning of the book of the Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer, it say facts. You know what a fact is? A fact means something that is true. A fact is a documentation that can be proved with receipts. A fact is something that if it was true then, it's true now because it's a fact and the fact will always remain. So it said facts in the 1600s. The world was crawling with vampires. So these are three different sources that I got here. Even though some of y'all, like the dude in the comments, probably, you know how negative people are, which I ain't even paying attention because I'm not even here for the negative people. Let negative people be negative people. I'ma still make my video. You understand? So ain't no negative person gonna stop me because that's a vampire. You know, I understand how vampire energy work now. And I understand that vampires can sire people. I understand vampires can control people to manipulate other people. And vampires can use people to get a hold of other powerful people. You know, because a vampire can't step to a witch. You know what I'm saying? They scared of witches. That's why they done took the church and corrupted it and got us scared to be witches. Why? Because they're vampires and they want to control you. So they have to take your power away from you. So they use words. That's why they gave us this corrupted religion. That's why they gave us these corrupted people that's ciphering our energy. That's why these people doing all these blood rituals. That's why when we at church, we got to drink blood and eat bodies. But a lot of y'all can't even fathom this shit. You know what I'm saying? Can't fathom it. You get what I'm saying? So people blind to this. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, you definitely a vampire. I'm definitely a witch. You know what I'm saying? I'm definitely a wise being. I'm definitely ancestral. I definitely been doing this from generation to generation. I definitely come from a powerful bloodline that will bangle you. Definitely. You understand that? That's how it is though. It's in your blood. It's in your blood. You know what I'm saying? So you can't be afraid of what's in your blood. You know, and then you gotta think too. Okay, so Abraham Lincoln, the Vampire Slayer. So I don't know if y'all know this, but did y'all know that his mama got bit by a vampire? Abraham Lincoln mama got bit by a vampire. I tell you that in the movie. And it was a vampire that taught him how to slay other vampires. Did you know that as well? Okay. So the fact that Abraham Lincoln, it was a vampire. Okay, so a vampire. So let's think about vampire movies here. Do y'all know any other vampire movie where somebody was their mother was bit when they was pregnant with them? You damn right, Blade. You're damn right, Blade. That was my shit. See what I'm saying? You don't be knowing that you know this shit until you start connecting the dots. You don't be knowing how deep this stuff is until you put it together. Because damn it, I done seen Blade so many times. But think about it, Blade. Blade mama was pregnant. That's how the movie started off. She was pregnant and she had Blade. Blade got some of that vampire blood in him, but he never turned. So you remember when that man got a hold of Blade, he made that serum for him. So Blade did not have to consume or use other people's blood for a source of survival. He had a serum that was created for him. Okay, so that was the altering of the DNA. That was genetic splicing. You seen them movies too, right? Okay. So now that you know it was some genetic splicing and some genetic altering of the DNA and the DEA going on, okay, that's how Blade got here. So that's why Blade was able to be known as what is called a streetwalker. Okay, so he became the a child of the night that could come out in the daytime. That's a hybrid, right? They talk about hybrids. They tell you that JC was a hybrid, right? Come on, read between the lines, people. They started creating hybrids, folks. Because you got to think, if you was already here and you was already a child of the sun, somebody altered somebody else's DNA so they could become a child of the sun too, right? Come on now. So in this Blade movie, remember the vampires had kidnapped Blade because they wanted his blood. And they wanted to turn his blood into a serum so that they can walk in the daytime. Because remember, they couldn't come out in the day unless they had a certain type of ring. Okay? So these rings, who wear rings? King Solomon, the Lord of the Rings, right? Come on, you know this from studying, right? So we know when we dealing with these rings, we dealing with magic. When we dealing with these rings, we dealing with chakras. We dealing with 360-degree energy. We dealing with um, sacred geometry. I mean, I don't know how deep you study, but you got to think, when we dealing with rings, we dealing with a different set of energy. We dealing with a different genre of energy. Wait a minute, hold on. Get this person up off my live right quick, because I wasn't even paying dude no attention. I promise y'all. But I was aware that somebody was here. Because he couldn't have my energy. He could not have my energy. You could see he clearly wanted my energy. He wanted me to argue with him, and he wanted me to conversate with him and not talk about this information. But that's what vampires do. They control you with their words. So you saw how I just survived the vampire attack? You saw that? Because he did not want me to teach y'all this. He did not want me to get into this lesson. He wanted to, like, basically control the narrative. You know what I'm saying? He wanted to say goofy stuff and just say stuff that don't got nothing to do with nothing when we over here talking about some serious stuff. Because people need to know this. People need to know that you being ciphered all the day long. You gotta think about that. When you go in a grocery store, all these different machines ciphering your energy. When you sitting at the traffic light, this shit ciphering your energy. When you walking down the street, the little power line ciphering your energy. When you sitting in the house, the little Wi-Fi box with the blue lights and shit ciphering your energy. Go back and watch that original movie, how they ciphered the vampire energy with the lights. Go back and watch all them movies that you think is movies that's really documentaries. See, they gotta tell you stuff. That's universal law. You understand? But they put it in the form of a movie, and they use Hollywood, which is Merlin's magic stick. So they gonna show it to you in a way that make it look like it's not real. Because they showing it to you on a television. You understand that? The tool that they use, and that's the television. Remember Emerald Till? Remember I was talking to Emerald Till, and Emerald Till got his own TV, right? Yeah, Emerald Till, fictitious character, maybe. Maybe not. Allegedly. I don't know. But Emmett Till in 1938, allegedly, came out. He had his own TV, remember? I mean, I don't know if y'all remember that, but you know, I got some downloads. Cause some of y'all think I don't get downloads, so whatever. I don't even care about all that no more. But anyway, I got that download from Emerald Till. And when I was talking to Emerald Till, he told me about the TV in 1938. So in 1938 is how they ushered out a part of the war. So the war was a psychological war against us. Because you got to think in 1492 they arrived to do war with us, right? 1492 they waged war against us. And we've been in war ever since. You have to think 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue. So when Columbus arrived where the Taínos was at. Are we called Taínos anymore? No, because we've been exterminated. Are we called the Mayas anymore? No, we have been exterminated. You have to think they did extermination compelling of our man. They used words. They used compelling. They used um, their magic. So they would compel us and talk to us and tell us who we are. Tell us what we will do. What it's a hypnosis type of thing. You have to think about this. That's the greatest way to enslave people is to hypnotize them to where nobody knows that they enslaved. Everybody's hypnotized. You have to think if you ever seen the Smurfs, which you probably think that's cartoon. If you ever seen the Smurfs, the villain Gargamel would actually use hypnosis to hypnotize the Smurfs. And he would get the Smurfs to walk into the trap. He would get the Smurfs to walk into the pot. He'd get the Smurfs to walk into the bag, and bag them up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so that's a lot of the things that they did to us. So in New Orleans, as a protection mechanism to stop themselves from getting hypnotized and to stop someone from smooth talking them or using sorcery to talk them into something or enslave them, they would use jazz music. Why? Because anybody that had a soul could not resist the music. So that meant if you hear these drums and you hear this trombone and you hear this trumpet and you hear these angelical sounds, because you got to think angels, which are messengers of God, are the only people that play trumpets. Messengers. The angelical beings. The angels are a choir. Remember, we got angel readings. If you have not got your angel reading, my website is back up and running, but it's spiritualsituation.com. Okay? I make sure I get that up and going, right? So, the angel readings, because we are angels, we are messengers of the divine word. So, the vampires don't want that word to get across. You have to think about that. Because if those good words get across, then those corrupting words can't flourish. You understand? It's a war here against these words. You know what I'm saying? So you have these so I know I'm going all over the place, but I'm staying together at the same time because I'm showing you how it's all connected. But they were playing this jazz music. In New Orleans, they march up and down the street with marching bands. If you notice, the marching band just come out of nowhere. Doom doom doom, chicka 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 doom doom doom, chicka 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 doom doom doom. I'm talking about you just walking down the street. They come down the street with these big ass bass drums. Doom, doom, doom. Chicka, 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 doom, doom, doom. Chicka, 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 doom, doom, doom. Now they got the clarinets out there. Dun, dun, dun. Chicka, chicka. They got the trumpet. They got the trombone. Somebody out there with cymbals. Next thing you know, you out here gyrating in the street. Why? Because that's voodoo. You can't resist them drums. That's soul. That's how your ancestors fight back, because your ancestors is where? Inside of you, because you the mansion of souls. Right? So you would see our ancestors marching up and down the street. They would have pots and pans. They would have glass bottles, glass jars. Tell me I'm lying. When the whole South is home of the blues, the whole South is home of jazz music. Go back and do your history and see why they had glasses sitting on their front lines. You go watch the Ray Charles movie. He got glasses hanging from strings. And he's sitting out there with the drumstick playing the glass. W.C.D. Handy in Alabama, the father of the blues. Memphis, Tennessee. We got Mississippi, Muddy Water. You're home of the blues. You go do your history. People that do their history know I ain't lying. B.B. King, Prince, electric guitars, harp music, string music. You know I ain't lying. What's his name? Louis Armstrong. Come on now. You know how much ether you gotta have to play a trumpet like that? Come on now. Tell me that these ain't angels. Tell me. Why did they start making them sell their soul in them blues movies? I ain't the only one watch them old school blues movies when they would take them men that played the blues and they wanted their soul. Why did they want their soul? Who wanted their soul? The vampire, aka the devil. You understand? They wanted their soul. Why did they want their soul? Because they didn't have none. So now you understand why they own the music industry? Is this shit starting to hit? Is this shit starting to hit why they own Hollywood? Is this shit starting to hit? Is this shit starting to hit why you gotta sell your soul in order to get in? Is this shit starting to hit now? Cause you don't think nothing of it, but it's a soul. But it's your ancestral DNA. It's your ancestral inheritance. It's your ancestral. It's your mansion. It's your ability to live in the mansion with the ancestors. It's your ability to be a heavenly being. It's your cosmically being, your etheric being. Somebody want your ether, man. Somebody want everything that you are. Want to be in your family so bad that they want your spot. That's what a vampire is. Want your spot. See, I even studied and went into it, like, because somebody was like, well, being a vampire is a higher level of consciousness and da da da. Shut up, man. I know exactly what it is. It's to cipher somebody else's energy. That's exactly what it is, to cipher someone else's energy, to live through somebody else. It's like, it's a cloning process. Because that's what cloning is. Cloning is basically using somebody. That's why they clone us. You got to think about that. When we go to school, they clone us to have one mind. Think about it. They make us wear a uniform. What the hell do uniform mean, y'all? Uniform mean to make everybody conform, right? Why do we have on uniforms, people? Because we have to conform to what? One world order, people. One nation, one God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Remember that bullshit? Yeah. Come on. Now we're being compelled, people. Get y'all shit together. Come on now. Y'all gonna trust these people. They be talking real fast and swift and quick. Vampires. Telling you what I know, man. Shit. Y'all better go study that Yale and who wear the suit. Shit. Go look at them. Go look at them blood rituals that do at Yale and shit. Go look at that shit. How they gotta get in the casket and all that shit. Man, there's some deep shit going on around here. But it's like a lot of the stuff that's deep, I can't even talk about it. Them folk could do something. You know what I'm saying? I'm kind of limited on what I can say and what I can't say. You know what I mean? And that's crazy because folk be challenging me like, well, you ain't who you say you is, or you ain't tapped in, or you don't do it. Like, bro, you have no idea. You just like, that's crazy. What Lil Kim say? I'm on some leader, y'all on some follower shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, you really have to understand this shit is deeper than that. You gotta understand who educated us. Okay, them people, right? Okay, okay. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Them people. We ain't gonna say their name, but y'all know them people that created the education system. Yeah, them people. The monopoly folk that monopolized everything. Yeah, them people. Okay, so what do them people own the music industry? Okay, okay. So they own the music industry. They own the education system. Wait, cause I don't think we ever thought that through. They own the education system. They own the music industry. Wait, do them people own the banks? Okay, okay. So they own the money system. Okay. So them folk also own the rail. Did you say them folk own the railroad? Because when we go back and study history, we know that the railroad went from Chicago to Atlanta, the midnight train to Georgia. We knew that. They had songs about this shit. You could just midnight train to Georgia. You know, you could just catch the train and go wherever the hell you wanted to go. The train go everywhere. It's underground tunnels in every city. We done studied that. We've been studying Tartaria for how long? I don't give a damn who's studying it. We've been studying it for how long? Okay. So when we've been studying this, we saw how all these we've been connecting to 50 states. We've been having people come on here and go live from their states. We've been having people show us the buildings. We've been looking at the buildings. We've been looking at the Egyptian hieroglyphs on the buildings. We've been uncovering how these buildings are hidden, how these buildings they hide half the building underground, and build on the topper half of the building. So we only see the top of the building. But we know that building be deep structured. We know that building go down into the sea. Emerald showed us that, right? When we went and looked at the Emerald City, that's when we seen Atlantis and we seen everything was an underground city, right? We saw all of this. We saw everything had been covered up. These was advanced people living in energy-free buildings that had mercury, ether, copper, gold, emerald, everything, every crystal gemstone you could think of was in that building, right? Okay. So why was Tartaria destroyed in 1492? Why was Tartaria destroyed? Because they told us in 1492 that Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and Columbus pulled up on some Indians living in some teepees, and he owned them. Nobody didn't tell us Columbus had pulled up on Tartaria. Nobody didn't say that. We found that out, that Columbus pulled up in that ship, in the Viking ship. We found that out, right? We found out that Columbus ship flew. It landed, right? We found that out too, right? So when we found out it landed, then that took us back to Aristotle. That took us back to Plato. So we started studying Aristotle and Plato's theocracy about the whole situation. So we start factoring in these books from the 1500s and the 1400s and the 1300s, which brings us back to how I started the laugh off and told you in the 1300s they had the tuberculosis outbreaks when all this shit started out in the first place. It was a whole. So the whole reason I was bringing this up because we was talking about the movie Sinners. And now everybody is talking about this vampire movie and how hoodoo and voodoo and magic is the only way to defeat these demonic beings. Well, I'm not going to call them demonic because demonic and vampire are two different things. But I'm going to say we had the wisdom and the knowledge the ring, which was 360 degrees to defeat these entities. We were more powerful than these entities. We were all powerful. But see, they took away our all powerful abilities by telling us there is a God. So when you started looking outside yourself for this God, you start searching outside yourself for your power. You start seeking outside yourself for your power. You start looking, outsourcing your power instead of looking in. So when you started looking out instead of looking in, that's where the psychological war started, because they used confusion, hypnosis to enter. They hypnotized us. And they did it so slick and quick in our face. They controlled the music industry. So once they controlled the music industry, they had us enchanting ourselves. We running around singing this shit, casting spells on one another. Didn't we? We said we no limit soldiers. We did. You know, we were out here singing these songs. They used, what was it called? 666 Mafia. They called it hypnotized music. Did they or did they not? Or am I just making this shit up? Yeah, they did. They called that shit hypnotized music. They did. They did. And then shout out to Governess Quatita. She has a channel called A Walk with the Ancestors. She got a video where she interviews a celebrity called Naya Rivera. This is from 2019. I watched this live myself in 2019, where a lot of these people that sing these songs that we listening to done came to her from the spiritual realm to tell her that they not in their body. How do you explain that shit if this shit ain't real? How do you explain that? That's all I'm saying. How do you explain it? Because a lot of people can't explain it. But I'm sitting here telling you, I was down there in New Orleans. I seen the shit myself. I seen the shit for my own self. I seen how this shit worked. And then I watched all these different movies and understood what siren is. Do you know what you could sire a whole bloodline? So that means if I'm your sire, because you gotta get bit by an original, right? So whoever the original is, that's your sire. And that original has a sire bloodline. So those are all the people. So let's say if I got bit by that original, right? And I'm sired to the original. And then I come and bite you. Now you sired to me because I'm sired to the original. We are all sired to that original one, whoever that one is. So if something happened to that original one, the whole sired bloodline is going to fall off. That's why the sired ones are going to protect their king, their sire. You understand that? You got to understand, we got kingdoms and shit now over here, and people going to castles calling people they sire and shit. You got to know what you listening to and know what you saying and know what you hearing. Sire bloodlines. To show sire. You understand? So a lot of us don't be understanding. But I ain't gonna make this video too long because I know it's a lot of information. But I had to put it on YouTube because, like I said, this is one of those videos that you're gonna have to rewind, watch back, Get your knowledge, you know, because I know it's a lot of tea in it. It's a lot of tea. Make sure if y'all made it this far in the video, y'all hit the like button, share the live. Gratitude for watching. Gratitude for commenting, participating. And make sure you go check out my website. It is spiritual slash, like hyphen a horizontal line, spiritual horizontal line situation.com. Spiritualsituation.com, you could book your angel reading. Because becoming an angel is how you fight in this spiritual warfare. Armageddon. That's what's going on here. You know what I'm saying? Oh, but to book you an angel reading or to book you a general reading or even a soul contract reading, um, you can also sign up for classes, courses. I have gemstone jewelry there, sage, spiritual needs, and have been adding things on there as I go. So make sure you go check out the website. Gratitude for your support. Um, and yeah, I will talk to y'all beautiful people real soon. Comment, let me know what you thinking about the video. If you had an experience, if you know books we should read or movies we should watch, make sure you comment and we open to it. Gratitude, and we will talk to y'all beautiful souls real soon. Peace.